right, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us this late in the day. I know it's the last session. Hopefully you still have a little bit of energy in you. We'll try to make it fun. We'll try to make it, well, not fun, but we'll try to make it a little bit dynamic. We'll do a couple of handoffs. But thank you. We're going to talk about ROSA. I do have to tell you, the original co-speaker could not travel in the end, so I asked Andrew Cathro from Red Hat to join me on stage. But the content is the same. So just a little switch into delivery. So what are we going to talk about today? I'm going to ask you to use your imagination at the beginning. And I want you to do that because that's going to take you away from the day-to-day distractions, from what you really want to do, which is operate an application platform at scale, securely, et cetera. Then we're going to talk about how other customers are looking at this and how they've described this to us. And I think some of those things will resonate with you. You'll feel that some of the challenges that they're facing are similar to the ones that you're facing. We're then going to talk about ROSA and how ROSA can help in that journey to get to that imaginary or dream target. And then we're going to talk about more specific strategies that customers have used with ROSA to get there. We'll spend a little bit of time at the end to talk about what's in the near future for ROSA. And then I think we'll have time for Q&A at the end. So if you could reinvent, pun intended, the way your company writes and delivers software from scratch, just imagine what that would look like, right? No legacy infrastructure, no process, nothing. You're doing it all from scratch. What would that look like? What would you like that to look like? What are your app teams telling you? What your op teams are telling you that? How should that look like? So we've asked customers this question, and many of them tell us every week and every day, right? So they tell us a few things, a few basic things. They want their application teams to be able to build software faster so they can deliver value for their customers. So they want to be able to have their app teams focus on the application, not on infrastructure, not on non-functional requirements. If they could do that, they could be much more agile and deliver much faster. They also don't want to worry about infrastructure details. They want that to all be codified and have guardrails around how everything works so they don't have to deal with it every minute of the day and then babysit everything. They also want to make sure that they're building it on a platform that is designed and is proven to scale to millions or even tens of millions of users when needed. And they also, of course, want this all to be secure from the beginning, and all those guardrails and observability and all that should be in place. That captures this dream that's been described. It's not anything earth-shattering, right? It's stuff that some of you here, or if you're listening later, are tasked doing for your own companies, is coming up with this dream scenario. So if we drill down one level from that imaginary dream, what we find is that to make that a reality, you need to consider a few things that are in the companies today. So it turns out companies still need to run software on-prem, and they're going to need to run that software on-prem for a while. They also want to move some of those workloads to the cloud, and then there are some in-between spaces where they might want to do that. So there are going to be hybrid scenarios, et cetera, and multi-cloud. The other thing that has to be considered here is that as these applications and environments proliferate, they're going to need a way to do this in a consistent, repeatable way. Right? They want to make sure that the environments on-prem, in the cloud, in different clouds, are provisioned in a similar way. They provide the same kinds of guardrails and the same security guarantees, et cetera. They also want to make sure that the governance around all of this is consistent. Single pane of glass, we've all heard of this. Now, these applications that are going to be running on these platforms, right, these ideal platforms, applications also have to be written from scratch. In some cases, they can be rewritten existing applications. But for the most part, we know that the reality is for applications to take advantage of a platform like this, they need to have certain characteristics, right? So these applications have to scale, as I said, to millions of users. They have to be globally available. They have to be very performant, and they have to handle tons and tons of data. And at the same time, you want to make sure that you're doing this by controlling costs. And scalability out and in is an important factor here. So you want to make sure that your application can scale up very quickly, but also when there's a valley and you're not handling a lot of traffic, you want to be able to scale in and control your costs. So these are all parts of the dream that need to be taken into account. And this kind of impacts the way you build applications. And not everybody is in the place where they can rebuild all the applications. Now, if you had all these applications in your portfolio today, what would they look like? So there are certain architectural patterns. These applications are modular by design, right? They are loosely coupled, microservices based. The operational model is usually declarative. You want something that just works and you just describe. You don't have to procedurally declare everything. You also want to make sure that your software development lifecycle is fully integrated so that the developers that are coding are committing their code and they don't have to think about what's happening down the line, but all the guardrails are built in to that platform and all these securities are guaranteed. So that's the dream, right? Nobody lives in a dream. So where are we today? Where are most of our customers today? Well, they have similar dreams, but they have many, many questions too. How do I get to that dream? How do I deliver on that dream, right? These are typical questions that we hear from customers all the time. How can I move my workloads, right? How do I even start doing that? Which workloads? How do I select them? How do I know which ones are good candidates? And the ones that are in the middle, how do I modernize those? Do I refactor them, recode them? Do I peel the onion? Should I give my developers access to a self-service platform, or should I hide it behind some kind of interface or API? How do I make sure that the tooling is consistent, there's governance around every step of the way, it's auditable, and all of these governance requirements are there? How do I pick the compute substrate for all of these? Many, many questions. So it's not as clear how to get there, right? And these questions continue as you go into your app portfolio and you're looking at what kind of tooling do I need to integrate into my platform? Do I already have some of these tools? Can I integrate them into the new platform? Do I have to spin up new ones and now I have two copies or two different workflows, two different processes? We have to look at the app portfolio, as I was saying. Do I refactor apps, rewrite them? There are many questions that have to be answered, and we're going to see a little bit later how some of our customers are succeeding at this. And to complicate things even further, and just to kind of finish this section, the applications that are in your portfolio today are very, very varied. Most likely, most enterprises, if you're in one of them, you are probably familiar with some of these categories. Different teams, different business units are running mobile backend applications, web applications, et cetera. There might be one or multiple teams creating a shared services platform and having to administer that on behalf of IT for all their customers, internal customers. You might be handling the upgrade from different technology stacks and programming languages, and how do you get that all together to work on a unified platform? And then obviously we have machine learning and all kinds of modern workloads that need to run on that as well. So we're going to spend the next few minutes talking about ROSA, which is a service that I had at AWS, and Andrew from the Red Hat side. ROSA is delivered in partnership with Red Hat. And we're going to talk about how we believe ROSA can help you and can help our customers get there by answering some of these questions or helping answer some of these questions and shortcut some of the process that's involved in this. If you try to create one of these platforms today in AWS, AWS has a very rich portfolio of container services and associated services. So you could go ahead and do that. You could have been doing this for the last few years, right? There are many options there. For those of you who are comfortable with AWS technologies and APIs, there is ECS and associated services. You can create your own container platform with AWS, very familiar AWS constructs. If you're coming from the open source world and you're familiar with Kubernetes, you can use EKS. And EKS is a very powerful and widely used Kubernetes managed platform. But in all of these cases, you are putting together the platform yourself. You're basically having to make a lot of these decisions on how to put all these pieces together. And it gets even more complicated when you look at it, especially in the Kubernetes side. And I'm assuming because you're here and you're interested in OpenShift, or probably are interested in this is going by itself. Sorry. You've seen something like this, right, which is from the CNCF. The ecosystem for these projects is vast and complicated. And in many cases, the team responsible for creating, I don't know what's going on, the team responsible for creating and maintaining these platforms is tasked with making these decisions, right? You're looking at a vast array of services, projects, components, and you have to integrate it all together. If you're starting from scratch and doing it yourself, or what we call do-it-yourself Kubernetes, right? It's completely open. So you have full power to customize anything you want from the operating system all the way up. But you also are responsible for all the decisions, right? What are the different components? What are the different versions? Are they even compatible with each other? How do I maintain them? How do I upgrade them? Are they upgradable independently? You can also go with EKS. So EKS has a lot of good defaults for getting started with a Kubernetes platform. So I would probably say if you want to do a Kubernetes platform, don't do it yourself. Just use EKS, because it's really the best way to get started. Now, there's another option, which is the one we're going to talk about now, which is ROSA. And ROSA is much more than a container orchestration platform. ROSA is an application platform built on top of Kubernetes. And to tell you all about it, I'm going to hand this over to Andrew Cathro.
So I thought I was trolling him with a remote, and it was not me. So I was saying I was tempted to ask a question about what OpenShift is. So when I do that, typically we'll get a show of hands, and the answer will invariably be, it's enterprise Kubernetes from Red Hat. I guess that makes sense because you're used to Red Hat Enterprise Linux, but it's so much more than enterprise Kubernetes. So Kubernetes is arguably the best container orchestration platform that we've seen on the market today. It's the foundation of our offering, but it's just that. It's a container orchestration platform. So our goal with OpenShift is not just to orchestrate containers. That's part of what we have to do. But the real platform vision here is to deliver something that can help you. I see what you mean. Is to deliver a platform that will help you develop your applications, deploy your applications, scale, manage, secure, and monitor your application stack. So the vision here with OpenShift is, again, more than containers, but an application platform. So OpenShift, actually, I think this week marks our 10th year of OpenShift. We actually announced it at the first reInvent, our CEO up on stage. Back then, it was based on gears and cartridges. It was a PaaS platform. Version 3 moved to Kubernetes. I think we were the first enterprise Kubernetes platform as a service alongside with Google at the time. Since then, the market has grown. And I can tell you from the very early days that the most popular platform for our customers was on AWS. So we have OpenShift running on AWS, and we have an amazing relationship with AWS. Right? Back from 2008, right, in the early days of the platform and RHEL, and we have over 60,000 joint customers successfully deploying their applications on AWS. So here we have a great platform. We have a great cloud to run on, but we're just an ISV application, right? So how can we do that better for our customers? How can we help our customers deliver the applications that they need and scale them in a more native fashion? So that leads us to ROSA. So Red Hat OpenShift Service on AWS, consider this to be another container service from AWS, but rather than being managed Kubernetes, we're a managed application platform. So the goal is to provide a fully managed OpenShift experience in partnership with AWS that you procure and use where you would use any other OpenShift service. So looking at the picture that Ike showed before, we're really trying to flesh out this picture. So ROSA sits side by side with EKS, with ECS, with Fargate as a turnkey application platform from AWS, delivered in partnership with Red Hat. So the interesting part about this slide, which I hope will stay on screen for more than it did last time, is you've got choices. Right? So as somebody who's obviously very OpenShift-centric, being from Red Hat, I'm not going to tell you that every container workload belongs on ROSA. If you just need the container platform, you've got EKS. Right? If you just want to run a serverless function, right, you've got Fargate. So the goal now is to find the right solution for the customer. So one of the great things about working with AWS, with the leadership principles that they have, is this kind of obsession with the customer, this focus on the customer. So the question that we ask the customer is, well, what are you looking to do? And how do we map that back to the technology that we have in the stack? Right? If you're looking for just Kubernetes, we've got EKS. I typically find that a customer wants more, and in those conversations, we'll pull out what are you looking for. But that's where ROSA can help fit the bill. So the majority of our customers on ROSA are existing OpenShift customers on-prem. They're making the journey to AWS, either long-term that's going to be the only platform, or they're going to be hybrid with on-prem OpenShift and ROSA and AWS. And the key word that from marketing we talk about is hybrid. I think what I hear customers talking about is consistency. I've got a consistent set of tools and interfaces and life cycles and support no matter where I deploy. Whether I'm deploying a physical system, on a virtual system, or on AWS with the ROSA. So your developers don't have to learn new pipelines depending on where they're going to deploy, or new tools, a new interface. Right? The same version of Kubernetes on-prem, on VMware, on ROSA, on AWS. So we've integrated with all the key services. So again, consider us to be a native service of AWS. So how we simplify that integration as you're moving from on-prem to the cloud. So we have all this stuff in the box, right? I may have mentioned 12 or 13 times already that we're an app platform. We're not just Kubernetes. So there's lots of things in the box, and we have an opinion, right? We have a very opinionated view of how we would deploy. So everything is in the box that you would need, but it doesn't mean that you're stuck with those components. So we like to talk about batteries being included, but swappable. Right, so if you take a look at the stack, I'll talk about the things that you're not going to swap. You wouldn't swap out RHEL Core OS. Why would you? It's the best Linux to run containers. Right? And I say that knowing the market very well. It definitely is. So you keep that. Obviously keep the Kubernetes. If someone could fix that, I'd really appreciate it. I have to keep this pressing the bad button. And then we've got a core set of services, whether that's storage services, networking, monitoring. But then Okay. Thank you. So above that line, these are services that we think you need to fill those boxes. Right? You really want a service mesh. Right? You really want to look at a serverless solution. You need observability, you need monitoring, logging. You need to have pipelines. How you fill those boxes depends on your stack. It may be that you're only deploying on AWS, so you're going to use co-build, co-deploy. You're going to go native with the build solutions. It may be that you're hybrid and you're already using Tecton. Right? So depending on your use case, we can swap these boxes out. The one, looking at the slides here, that we see most commonly swapped out is the EFK stack, typically CloudWatch on AWS, you're going to do that. But the other components there typically get used, but you could swap them out based on your use cases. So we're giving you choice. Again, choice in the container platform you're running, choice on the services on top. So benefits of the platform. Again, the key takeaways for me will be we have a joint service with AWS. Right? We don't compete with EKS. We complement depends on your use case. We deliver a platform that's focused on applications. So when you hear us talk, we don't talk too much about Kubernetes and containers. We want to mention it 2 or 3 times maybe in a presentation, but it's about the applications. Right? Maybe some of us, looking at the amount of beards in the room, do deploy Kubernetes just to deploy Kubernetes because it's cool, right? It's technology. But in your business life, you deploy Kubernetes so you can deploy applications. Our focus is on the applications. We're trying to shield you from the implementation. So what that gives you is a focus on developers and apps. Gives you consistency based on the platforms that you run on. So why take the managed platform? Right. Any folks here who are running OpenShift today who are not on ROSA are already self-managing. So why don't you take that experienced team that you have today, or the team that could do upstream Kubernetes or EKS, and then why not just use that team to run OpenShift? I'd argue that you can, right? Probably the folks in this room, the folks you've got back at the office, are smart enough to do this operations. They know the same things that we're doing. They're smart enough to know how to set up the monitoring, how to respond to alerts at 2 in the morning. They're happy to get up at midnight on a Saturday to do the upgrades, or to check the compatibility of the various components in the stack. When you upgrade to Kubernetes 1.22, these APIs are deprecated, this service is going to have to be updated. You can do all that. What I suggest, though, is you move from this 24/7 operations to 9/5 innovation. Typically, when I speak to customers, where they spend their time is on the left of this slide, on the plumbing. They're spending time on the undifferentiated work. Right? It's critical work. You need to keep the platform up and running, but it's not how you're going to innovate. So when I talk to customers, I typically hear, well, yeah, we're going to do service mesh, or we want to move to GitOps, but it's going to be next year because we have this work to do. So again, our goal here is to allow you to do that innovation. Right? Innovate 9 to 5, work decent hours, don't get the call at 2 o'clock in the morning. Let us handle the plumbing while you concentrate on the business innovation, right? Driving that digital innovation within your organization. So what we've got here is the mandatory architecture slide for any reInvent session. And this is important now, but we're going to show you some roadmap and show you how we're going to simplify this coming up. So what OpenShift looks like in ROSA is similar to, if you use OpenShift today, what it looks like. We have 3 control plane nodes, some infrastructure nodes running the logging stack, running the ingress, and then the worker nodes, all integrated with the core Amazon services, be that EC2, EBS, S3, Route 53, etc. So that's the typical stack. Who runs it? So for a self-managed customer today, you're obviously responsible for the control plane, compute, data plane. Red Hat handles support and billing. On ROSA, we're responsible for the control plane. So the upgrades, the maintenance, the alerting, likewise on the compute. Right? So we'd often like to talk about if something goes bump in the night, who has to deal with it? Right? That should be us. If your application fails, you're going to get paged. But if your worker nodes fail, we have an issue with the networking, an upgrade gets stuck, that's our SRE team. So our goal is to give you a platform so you only have to worry about deploying and managing your applications. So quick summary on ROSA. Again, focus on innovation. Right? Day-to-day, plumbing, operations, outsource that, as you have done today with your cloud. You're all here because you're running on a managed cloud. Take a managed application platform. Number of benefits by us managing it. We know it's got all the best practices because it's Red Hat who's running this in combination with AWS. So we know how to optimize your resources. We know how to reduce the overhead operationally and the services that we're running, and we know how to keep it secure. Right? All the best practices out of the box. No need to re-architect as you move to AWS. You take your existing OpenShift apps, you can move it seamlessly to the cloud. And again, our goal is to accelerate your migration here to AWS.
Thank you. I think we're going to try and fix the auto advance thing. If you give us a second. Let's see if this works. So I hope that you got a bit of a peek at why OpenShift and a managed OpenShift in ROSA is different from these things on the left. It's not really, you can't really compare apples to apples. Now, many customers still do that. And this is a very common question that we have. So just like Andy said, if you want to have a container platform and fully customize it, go with EKS. But if you don't want to do that, if you can't do that, or you're focused on something else, use ROSA. That's probably your best solution. Now, we can't tell you what is the best solution. It's one of our leadership principles, work backwards from customers. Only you can determine that. But what we can tell you is what our customers have told us who have gone through this journey and what we've learned from that. So what we've learned from that, if you look at it in the big picture, it boils down to a build versus buy decision. So if you're thinking about this, for whatever reason you haven't made up your minds, excuse me, and the question is EKS or ROSA, then you can think about this for a moment, see if it applies to you. We have seen that for AWS customers who have large platform teams that are highly skilled in Kubernetes, that have a willingness to build and assemble their own thing, to highly customize a platform, that have a need for many very, very large clusters, and they require a lot of choice and flexibility. They are probably using EKS, or they want to use EKS. If the customer or the team within the customer is such that it prefers a complete solution where you don't have to make all these decisions ahead of time, right? You want to benefit from the expertise of others that have done it before, and it has some pre-integrated, good solid decisions that are swappable, as we said, but are still there for you to take advantage of from day one. It usually requires a smaller team to operate because there are fewer things to tweak, to maintain. The range of skills that we see in customers who deploy ROSA varies quite a lot. In the EKS side, the skills are pretty advanced. We have very advanced technical users in ROSA as well, but some not as technical too. You don't need necessarily as many advanced skills to run ROSA cluster in production and still get all the benefits. Usually they have less needs for customization, but once they get there, again, things are swappable, but they can get started much quicker. Usually run smaller clusters or smaller environments. And on day one, they're probably less interested in component choices, right? They have other things to do, like innovate on their applications. So let's talk about how some customers have actually used ROSA to achieve this dream. First, let's talk briefly about the situation they're usually in, right? So they might already have experience running OpenShift. As Andrew said, many of the ROSA customers are existing OpenShift customers, on-prem maybe, but they don't know how to do this in the cloud. They may be running an older version of OpenShift that is not directly upgradable to the newer versions of OpenShift, right? Then that can be a challenge. They could have a ton of different components that need refactoring or redesigning, and of course, a very large and complicated app portfolio. So the typical challenges that we hear from them when they get engaged with deploying and starting their journey is, I don't even know how big this team has to be. How many people do I dedicate to this migration effort? Is it one team? Is it multiple teams? Does it change over time? What other technical considerations do I need to even start thinking about? How do I need to do my storage differently? Can I reapply the storage? What about networking? How is that different? Can I carry that through? Another very important one is skills and skills development. Do I need to retrain my existing teams? Do they need different skills? And what's performance going to look like once I'm on a different platform, right? Especially in the cloud, where I don't control the hardware directly. On the operational side, there are questions about what does it mean to let go of some control, right? I'm used to managing everything and having visibility and tweaking everything to going into a managed service. There is a trade-off when you do that, and hopefully the benefits are clear, but sometimes teams are not used to relinquishing some of that control. Also, there could be questions about, well, some of the apps that are new are going to benefit from all of this, but we need to mix them in with all of these other apps. You know, we have good apps and bad apps. How do we even identify which apps are good and bad, you know, so to speak, good and bad? What about security? How is security handled in the cloud? How is security handled in a managed environment, et cetera? So the pattern that we've seen most successful is this modernization factory. You may have seen similar processes or similar flows in the past, but it starts with a pilot. You pick a handful of applications and application teams that are already advanced, which you know and trust. They've been maybe trailblazers, they've already containerized early on, or they've been building 12-factor apps now for several years. Pick a few that you know you can be successful at and start with those and deploy them. Get them deployed, get a pilot going, get an environment ready. Many of our customers actually go to production with these pilots before even moving the rest of the app portfolio. But having a successful first step has been key to many of our customers. Once you take that first step of identifying those apps, the next step is to really analyze and assess the application estate, the whole portfolio. What does that look like? These 5 apps, or however many that we chose for the pilot, how representative are those apps in regards to the rest of the portfolio? Are those 5% of all my apps? Is it 10%? What does that next 40% look like? What does the next 45 or 50% look like? And these good apps and bad apps, obviously it's not a binary definition like that. There's going to be a gradient of application challenges. Some of them are going to be containerizable. Some of them will need to be refactored. Some of them will never go on the cloud, right, because of data residency requirements or other things. So analyzing the app portfolio is an important next step that will drive you into the next stage, which is organizing migration waves. This means that you're going to organize your teams and your applications to move in different waves over a few months. And you need to have the patience and the perseverance to go through this whole process, because otherwise, some customers have gotten stuck at the beginning and they have a successful pilot, but they don't have adoption. You don't want to be there. You also don't want to rush it because things are going to break. You don't want to break stuff in production. So this can take anywhere from a few months to a couple of years. So you have to understand that this is not an overnight process. But in the end, what this is going to look like is you're going to have a platform that's much more modern, that has all these guardrails in place. And a vast majority of your day-to-day applications are going to be living there. And yeah, you're still going to have a sliver of them that you still have to babysit, but it's going to be a much better day. So what are the benefits of moving, finally realizing this dream, or at least getting partway there? Well, you're going to end up with a fully managed platform that is reducing your risk in many different levels. In terms of knowledge risk is what happens if my platform or administrator team leaves? How quickly can I hire people to get and manage this platform? Right? Do they need to relearn all these things and all these integrations? You're going to have more reliable operations. Now you're depending on an expert SRE team. It's a fully managed platform. And you are going to be able to exploit many of the other platform capabilities that maybe your teams didn't even have time to look at, right? Maybe there's a bunch of functionality there that you never got around to really leveraging. Some of our customers are telling us, wow, all these things we could never get to, now we can get to. And they've also expressed surprise at some other benefits that they've gotten. For example, they didn't really realize the impact of this cost flexibility when they can scale out and scale back in when they need to. And there's a pay-as-you-go option, so you only pay for what you consume. This kind of almost unlimited capacity when you need it, right? You're running on the AWS cloud, so you can grow quickly when you need to. You don't have to worry about racking and stacking servers or going through procurement. There's a reduced reliance on third-party tools and third-party components. It's all integrated. You get access to the vast number of services that AWS has. They're all running on a standard AWS account, so any other workload that you're running on AWS or other services are completely accessible to ROSA running applications. And you also have a vast array of compute at tunable EC2 instances that you can leverage, and which is growing, and we'll talk about that. So this is what our customers have told us. These are customers who have gone through this journey. For some of them, it's been a little bit painful. For others, a little bit smoother. But they've learned a lot, and we've learned a lot working with them. And hopefully, some of these lessons are things that you can leverage. And obviously, we're here. You have your account teams, and we can help you also go through this journey with a lot of these learnings. The last few slides, we're going to talk a little bit about the future of ROSA. Hopefully, give you a bit of a glimpse. I'll hand it back to Andrew, and then hopefully we'll have a few minutes for Q&A.
Thank you. Okay, so we're going to touch on a few of the enhancements coming in 2023, just the highlights. The roadmap is obviously long, I want to do in the last 3 slides. So the first focus that we really have is improving the provisioning workflow. So we mentioned the journey started with OpenShift as an ISV application on top of AWS. We're now a joint service, and we're working to kind of remove some of the seams between what Red Hat provides and what AWS is delivering to make it a seamless experience. So the first part is a new provisioning experience with an onboarding flow, which goes through in the console. You're checking your quotas, the right roles are in place. And then moving to using managed policies from AWS, so not asking our customers to create policies, but to have policies out of the box, as you see with every other native service. And then moving to have a full console installation experience, similar in scope to what you see with EKS. I teased this earlier, but we had an architectural diagram that showed what OpenShift looks like on AWS. And I'm not going to go back all the slides, but I'm not trusting this remote right now. But if you remember, there's a lot more boxes. So the biggest change that you're going to see, this is going to come out in very early Q2 of 2023, is a move to what we call hosted control planes. You may hear Red Hatters talk about Project Hypershift. But the goal here is to move the control plane from within your account on EC2 instances into a centralized ROSA service account. So great cost savings, as you're no longer running 3 beefy control plane nodes, infrastructure nodes in your cluster. We also have a more robust system because we don't have accidents where somebody deletes a node from you delete a node in your account, not realizing it's a managed node. It reduces the egress requirement since we do the egress from the service account, not from your account. Provisioning time goes from maybe 45 minutes on a good install down to what's now 10 to 15 minutes on an install with the hosted control plane. A bunch of other features, my favorite of which is flexible upgrade options. I can upgrade the control plane today. I can upgrade these node pools tomorrow, the following versions weeks from now. So breaking up, OpenShift previously was one version, and now it's going to be control plane version and versions for node pools. So it allows you to do canary upgrades. And then expanding our deployment options. Right? So we want to be as heavy as the AWS service is in every region, in every type of region. So local zones are, I'm thinking this is wood, should be released next week. Right? So the low latency, kind of high performance close to where your workloads need to run with local zones. Wavelength coming early in January, more for the telco edge use case, with outposts in Q2. Expanding compute types, so adding accelerated computing, aka GPUs. Best case, I think we're going to slip this one in before Christmas, so if we've all been good, Santa's going to bring GPU instances, if not, very early Q1. And then Graviton instances to reduce your costs later in Q2. With that, I'm going to leave the resource slide on the screen, and we've got some time for questions. And we can dig more into the roadmap, which is also published online. All right. Well, thank you for your time, and the slides will be available. So thank you for your time and your patience with our technical difficulties.
Thank you very much. Thanks for
Enjoy
staying
the rest
so
of the
late.
show.